Hello again, this is Odd Job Fix. I repair and restore antiques and collectibles, and other things as well. You might be thinking, what in the world is all of this set up here? But I've got a few of these chairs to do, and most of them have been re-glued. I have to believe that they've been re-glued with a PVA glue because of all this residue that's on here. And it's just not coming apart very clean. In other words, this is tough. Typically, to disassemble a chair frame, you might use something like a mallet. And here I'm also using some steam and some heat to loosen the joints, but I just don't feel like beating on these chairs. I've broken one of the pieces. There's a really vulnerable area right there, which we'll discuss in a minute. But let's try to put a little pressure on this before doing any heat. I'm using a spreader clamp here to counteract the pressure down here. And you might say, well, why don't I get it closer to the joint? Well, there's a wedge shape here, and this is just working out better for the moment. I guess I could put a little platform underneath here, but it does create a little flex right there, and I watch that very carefully. I don't want these legs to snap, but the grain looks good, so let's give it a pump. And remember, this is dry. And I'm starting to see some bow. Okay, and I see a little bit of daylight on both sides, which is good because we might be able to get some steam in there. Now, I've been told I could use a little vinegar in that water. But this is walnut, and these are naturally finished, and I'm not sure what the vinegar would do to the walnut. So I don't want to discolor the wood, which the vinegar may do. Let's get this plugged in, and we'll put a little heat in here. This accomplishes two things. We're drying the moisture, and the air is pushing it further in. Want to get hot to the touch, but not so hot that you can't touch it. Don't want to scorch the wood. All right. I think it's coming apart. I'm just afraid of the snapping this one leg here. I think I see the steam going through the other side, so I believe we're getting in there without having to turn the thing around and shoot from the inside of the frame. Now I might give it a slight pop. As I said, these are tough. Open up pretty good here. Nothing over here yet. There it goes. Okay. It's pretty free now. Now at this point, I'm putting undue pressure on the back one there. So let's turn this around. I'm not so sure. This one here might be loose enough to just, yep. That one's already done. Now I think I have a screenshot earlier of a break right here. It goes all the way down through here. You can see it on both sides. And I don't want this to break necessarily, although it's not lined up real well, but I might be able to get that out with sanding. And over here, I've noticed some sort of a half-blind spline or something that somebody's put in here. So we're going to see whether we even, well, yeah, it's open here. So we're going to have to take this apart in spite of that being there. But let's get this one side off. There we have more of this residue. That definitely is a PVA glue, a wood glue, and done post manufacture, I'm sure, because it wasn't even that tight. I don't know how thick that is, but it's several thousandths thick. So poor job at the best. Here's a better look at that split. I don't know if I made it worse. I don't think so. But when going to take this joint apart here, we're going to have to be very, very careful in doing that. And it's going to have to come apart. And this one as well. There's a little movement. So I think the gist of the thing here is that what we're doing is we're using steam to break loose, disassemble these walnut chairs that have been re-glued by someone. And whether they were glued at the factory with a PVA type of glue or not, we're going to use a hide glue putting these back together. I don't like doing this necessarily because I don't like to hurt the edges of these joints. But, and boy, is that just feels gooey. I mean, like rubber in there. Yep. And it just feels at this point like sort of a rubber. What a mess. Now we got a little breakout on this side. Oh, that's okay. It's completely hidden. Well, no, it's not. There's a piece here that came out. Fortunately, it's on the inside of the frame where it won't be seen, but we're going to have to find that here somewhere on the bench here and put that back in carefully and sand it smooth. Okay, I found that piece, and it was right here. So I'm going to just tape it there so we don't lose it. Now what I've done here is I've set up a couple of blocks on this stretcher here, and they have I cut a notch in them so I can put the cylinder right in there. So let's get this a nice crank down here. I hear that plywood start to creak. I know it's pretty tight. I'll put something here to protect the leg. And I don't really have room at this point for a stretcher between those two, so let's try the outside. Put a little pressure on it. And all that's happening right now is my block is moving. I put another clamp on it. Put it on this side so we can get to the screw and give it some okay. It just slips. That's why it's better if I can try to get both pieces underneath the piston. We're gonna put this underneath both of them. There we go. I think I had some other footage of this process I was doing on one of the other frames, and I said I should have put a piece of sandpaper in between there, and I still didn't do it. So, but that would definitely help, and we may end up doing that. All right. I'm getting a little pressure without slippage. Okay, I've done a couple of rounds of steam and heat, a couple of cycles of that, and I've got a little bit of a open just a little bit there, and the glue is softened. So I think this one's broken loose, and I could give it a pump. It's going to kind of push it off center. But I think it may pop off with a couple of light taps at this point. If not, I can reverse this and put this over here and raise the other side up a little bit. But you get the idea of how removing one of these stretchers without having the other side of the frame here to push against. Okay, well, that one came loose, so it wasn't that extra little spline or whatever you want to call it that was in there. What a mess. Just gobs and gobs of glue everywhere. We're going to have to clean all that up before we can use the hide glue, because hide glue needs the wood grain itself. It can't be sealed. There can't be a barrier. So some of this we'll be able to lightly dress on the desander without changing the angle or anything. And other areas here, if these dowels aren't loose, then we're going to just have to work around them. I see this dowel's got a split right down the middle of it. I don't know if that shows, but it's a mess. I'm believing that this is one of the ones that's not going to have to come apart. It looks pretty good. I may sneak a little, it's hard for me to say, cyanate glue, cyanate in there just to reinforce it, but I can, it's not aligned. So it's been re-glued. All of this has been re-glued. And poorly at that, if they couldn't even get the alignment right there. But that will sand out. Same amount either side. Working on stuff that's been worked on before is at least twice as hard. Okay. I've gone ahead and attached some sandpaper this time to my blocks. I put a little adhesive on one side only so I can take this back off. And I kicked it off a little bit with the heat gun. So let me get this set up. Now before I put this together, you may not be able to see it on the camera, but right along here is that crack that we looked at earlier. And on the other side it runs all the way down. This was that piece that fell out. I quickly put it back in with some glue, and it'll sand up just the way we need. Okay, we're all set up to spread this particular joint, and we may end up putting a spreader clamp down here. Might as well get that in place in case it comes into play. Okay, and of course our concerns are that split, so I'm trying to take this off as one piece. Now 2 clamps, because 1 clamp just makes a pivot point, and I've got the second clamp just slightly off the edge there for sort of a pinching effect. Now my concern at this point is not only the split that's in here, but the way this has been curved out, and this grain is running this way, and of course the idea that too much pressure right out here on this point could just split this piece. So we've got to watch both sides of this one. Another good reason to go gentle on this rather than to be beating on it with the hammer. However, a little shock now and then is probably what's making things happen. So I'm going to put a little pressure on it and just see what happens, and then we'll go for the steam. That's actually quite a bit of pressure. We may be out of water there, but and patience is the key here. Putting a little pressure and waiting. So while we wait, I think I'll unplug this, cool it down, refill it, and we can continue on. See you in a minute. Okay, while off camera, we got the steamer refilled and it's up to temperature. Look at this mess. I don't know if you can see that from there, but that's just a bunch of rubbery glue. It's got no place in a piece of furniture. Fortunately, we can soften it and get it out of here. We're going to have to scrape all the dowels too. Okay, patience. Put a little bit more steam on this. This one's opening up a little. I'd rather this one open. Well, I think we'll shut her down for a minute or so and just let this cook. As you can see, I've turned this thing on the other side here, and I think we're getting some steam down in this one here. This one's still pretty tight. And I had an idea. if I don't knock everything loose, that'll, a little shock here might tend to open that up a little bit, but maybe not. All right, well, while off camera and setting this up with a little sandpaper so it wouldn't keep slipping out of this, this wedge shape, a good thing happened. This all of a sudden opened up over here. My blocks have slipped. Everything's kind of deteriorating, but it's working. So I'm not sure where the... Yeah, it's just moving these blocks at this point. But we're open here and we're open here, so I think we can conclude that this is a done deal. So we'll get off camera here and I'll finish this up. And I'm going to consider that a wrap for this video, because the purpose of all of this was to disassemble this very difficult chair being repaired beforehand, and we'll get it cleaned up and then I'll begin the glue up process, which probably would be the subject of another video. As I said, I've got several of these to do, so there'll be plenty of opportunity. Hey, thanks for watching.